Interpersonal relationships. There are many different types of relationships. Interpersonal relationships have played a very important role in all of our lives. Everyone we encounter is someone we have had a relationship with. Though each relationship is different, it is a relationship nonetheless. Everyone has relationships with another person. Friends, family, or a spouse, these are all relationships that are a part of our everyday lives, and how we choose to make them is what makes them special. Many of my relationships are very important to me. This topic hit home for me because I was at one point pretty difficult to have a relationship with. Having a relationship with another person is not easy. There are many steps and they are a lot of maintenance. What I have found is what I would like to share with you today. Interpersonal relationships are an important part of all of our lives. Today I will tell you about the different forms of interpersonal relationships and different ways to communicate. Second, I will talk about how relationships can be formed. And third, I will explain some research that has been done in order to help people have happy and healthy relationships. Interpersonal relationships are an essential part of our everyday life. They help us become who we are. Interpersonal relationships are central to being human. Relationships come in many forms, and each of them can be different. Be of different value to each individual person. MSG experts wrote, an interpersonal relationship can develop between any of the following: individuals working together in the same organization, people working on the same team, relationship between a man and a woman, relationship with immediate family members and relatives, and a relationship of a child and his parents. Also, relationship between friends. In their article, What is Interpersonal Relationship? Psychologists say that if a relationship lasts more than 7 years, it will last forever. When we are young and we hear this, it makes us think that this friend or family member we trust wholeheartedly is going to be there for us. As we get older, we realize that relationships take a lot of work. If only one person is taking the time and effort to make a relationship work, then that relationship is doomed to fail. This applies to any and all relationship. Family, friends, coworkers, and any other people we come into contact with. In our homes, we form relationships with our parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, and uncles. Outside of the home, we form relationships with friends, coworkers, cousins, a significant other, and anyone else not closely related to us. The most important interpersonal relationships would be family, friends, and significant others. You don't get to choose who your family is, but you do get to choose the relationship you have with them. Depending on how you've been treated by them, you may or may not have a great relationship. This is why communication is such a key role in relationships. With all the different ways we have to communicate nowadays, keeping a relationship happy and healthy is super easy. As with anything, though, there are positives and negatives. Using social media is a good way or a bad way to keep a relationship. Mitchell Vitalis et al. Did a study on the effects of communication that Snapchat has on our young adults. In the study, the authors said that young adults indicated that Snapchat served as a double-edged sword, a communication modality that could lead to relationship challenges, but also facilitate more congruent communication with young adult interpersonal relationships. This study was entitled, Snapchat is More Personal. This study showed that just like any form of communication, it can build better relationships, but it could also end a relationship. How many times have you scrolled through Facebook and seen a photo or a post about a friend having a good time with some of their friends and family, or gotten a Snapchat of something similar? Now, how many times have you scrolled through Facebook and saw an argument, or gotten a Snapchat of an argument? Social media is a great way to spread the love you have for another person, but when you bring anger and hate to social media, where you have other friends and family that will jump in, that relationship is going to be gravely affected if it manages to survive that argument. Communication is a very important factor to maintaining relationships. How we choose to communicate through social media is very important. It can make or break any relationship. More often than not, using social media for your main form of communication is going to end badly. Type words lose their meaning. Type words lose their meaning because who you are talking to can take something you said and make it mean something that you had no intentions of it meaning. Using social media as the only form of communication for some relationships is not healthy. I've experienced too many times where my type words were taken to mean something other than what I had said. Those relationships did not last. Of course, there were many other issues that factored into those relationships' endings, but in the long run, the misunderstood typed words were the end. One study that I found to be most relevant was done by Donna Nelson. She titled the study Enhancing Interpersonal Communication: Positive Mood Effects. The point of her study was to test the possibility that positive effect would promote the design of effective interpersonal communication. In the study, she used 44 males and 96 female undergraduates. They were induced to experience positive or neutral effects. After this, they were asked to converse with 15 different stimuli. She concluded that those in a positive mood constructed messages that contained greater detail and more literal information, better proving that when we are happy, we are more open to having conversations for the sake of having one. In Nelson's study, she proved that communication is very important, but another very important factor is our mood. We are more willing to communicate face-to-face when we are happy. When we are angry, we want to yell and scream or not communicate at all. Our body language is also another important factor. The way we stand or face, or the face we are making, tells people whether or not we are open to communicating. For an example, let's say you are sitting in a classroom and the teacher or professor just asks you a question and is now looking for a student to answer that question. You, for whatever reason, do not want to answer, so you are avoiding eye contact and you do not raise your hand. This lets the professor know you do not want to be called on. However, that will not prevent them from calling on you, as we all know. I can think of 10 times that my body language has let people know I was open to having a conversation, and another 10 times where I was not. Usually I am only open to deep and meaningful conversations with the people I love and spend a lot of time with. Being that my 2-year-old and my husband are the two people I am with 12 plus hours a day, they are the ones I communicate with most. Many times my son will need something minor, like fixing the television or plugging in his tablet. He will run up to me and ask me to help him. He doesn't fully understand body language yet, but if he did, he would have known that many times when I was taking tests and my body language was me trying to tell him just a few minutes. I was at the computer taking the test facing away from him. Many of our conversations end up with myself helping him and hoping I don't run out of time for my test. Interpersonal relationships are a part of our everyday lives. Anyone we communicate with, we form some type of relationship with. Interpersonal relationships are very important. The most important are the relationships we have with friends and family. The best way to keep a happy and healthy relationship is by communication. There are different ways to communicate: social media, verbal, and nonverbal communication. Your attitude also plays a big role in how you communicate. If you're in a good mood, you are more likely to have a good, friendly conversation. If you're in a bad mood, you're probably not so open to having a conversation. And if you have to have a conversation, it probably is not going to be a friendly one. Having happy and healthy relationships will have a big impact on your day-to-day life. If all of your relationships are in good standing, you're going to be happier. While the toxic relationships can affect your life negatively, making you unhappy. After all is said and done, I will leave you with this. Are you putting enough effort to make your relationships happy and healthy?